Spurs and scriptures, let's go.
All right, here was Storm. We had some pretty heavy rain the last couple of days, so I'm gonna be picking her feet really quick, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. So. Showing you, this is gonna be a new segment. Okay, girl. Good girl. What's up, guys? It's Chris here with Storm. It's Saturday, March 28th. We've had a couple of interesting days here in Texas the last week, is to say the least, here in the state of Texas. The last couple of days we've had some very heavy rain. My hometown and the area that I'm from has had severe flooding due to just the extensive amount of rain that we had the last couple of days. But yeah, Storm's a little dirty. She's out here and she's been rolling around, and I brushed her down a little bit, but I'm gonna have to give her a true bath here in a couple of minutes. But yeah, so this is gonna be Spurs and Scriptures, a new segment that I wanted to introduce to the channel. So this is gonna be just, casually sharing some of my Bible study with you guys and just doing some ranch stuff around the place. So it's gonna be part of the ranch vlog series. So don't know if I'm gonna try to combine all of it together or just have Spurs and Scriptures as its own segment. So this is gonna be a little bit of a trial launch and see how it does. So I have my notes with me. This is my Holman Christian Standard Bible, which I believe is now the CSV, Christian Standard Version, I believe. But I really like this Bible because it's not just a regular Bible, it is a minister's Bible. One of my pastors from my church gave it to me when I was going to seminary. I didn't finish, but when he heard that I was gonna be going, he gave me this Bible as a great resource. And I really like this Bible for a couple of reasons. This translation is a lot easier to read than the typical NASB, which is the closest to that of the Greek, the Greek language. So it's a lot easier to read than the NASB, which is my primary, the Bible that I tend to gravitate towards when I read and study. But this Bible has a lot of great resources to it. It's a single column wide margin, so it's got just a single column of scripture, but it's got some great resources as well. So this is a really interesting Bible to study altogether. For example, it's got this great guide and reference of different parts of scripture that you can turn to when you're dealing with a certain topic or issue, or just whatever kind of adversity you might find yourself facing. For example, it's got when you are blue, when tempted to do wrong, when you face physical danger, when you're discouraged, when you're bored, and it's got everything. It's got when nothing seems to be going right, when you're lonely, when you're afraid, when you're anxious, when you sin, when you need forgiveness, when you feel shame, when you doubt that God is able, when you are prideful, so on and so forth. It's got an extensive array of things you can turn to, or parts of scripture that it'll guide you to read. And then it's got the 21 essentials of authentic ministry. For example, these are just 21 notions or concepts that you should ground yourself in to make sure that you're doing your best when it comes to ministry, and you're making sure you're taking all the proper precautions and actions when it comes to being the best. Not the best that God has called you to be when you're called to do what you have to do in ministry. So it's got, for example, don't neglect your personal walk with the Lord, make time for your family, practice the ministry of encouragement, never make a decision when you are discouraged or depressed, so on and so forth. But anyway, so I have some notes. Today, I really wanted to go over, I was dealing with a little bit of anxiety as I'm transitioning careers right now. I came to this resource and I came to 1 Peter 5:7, and these were essentially my notes on 1 Peter 5:7. So I'll read it really quick and then I'll jump into my notes. So I'm just going to read the verses before too. Humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him because he cares about you. And then verse 8 goes on to say, be sober, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for anyone he can devour. devour. And so in my notes here, I have obviously the author here is Peter the Apostle. The audience was here to believe. The audience here was the early Christians facing persecution, and an overarching theme here is encouragement to remain humble, faithful, and trusting in God during hardships. And I think in today's day and age, being completely entrenched in the world of comparison for a lot of people, I think it's easy to look at whatever hardship you may be facing and to some extent want to dismiss it because it doesn't hold the candle to the person next to you and the world of misery they may seem to be facing. I think at the end of the day, we're all going through things, whether it's hardship, adversity, loss, uncertainty, whatever it may be. It's all, if it's struggle, the Lord is completely aware of it, and He doesn't see it as any less of adversity as the person next to you. And so that's something I'm constantly reminding myself of, is that, we all deal with things on a daily. And, I think a lot of people tend to compare themselves to other people, and I think that doesn't get you anywhere. Because at the end of the day, you're the one stuck with your emotions. You're the one having to live through whatever adversity is currently, in your life. And at the end of the day, regardless of what the person next to you is facing and how they're feeling, when you go home and you have to shut your eyes and look in the mirror, it's at the end of the day, when you go home, you've got to deal with your drama. You've got to deal with your problems and everything going on in your life. So I think everybody's adversity and all the issues that people are facing are just as important as the person next to you. So I have here in my notes. So Peter's giving instructions to church leaders and believers. He reminds them to be humble under God's almighty hand and to cast their worries on God instead of carrying their burdens alone. And we have such a strong tendency, or at least I do. When I say this, I guess I'm speaking for the masses, and I shouldn't be. But we have such a strong tendency to want to carry everything on our own. And it's easy to forget, that God is with us 24/7. He's with us, and He is, He cares about us, and He wants that relationship with us. And He's always got an ear ready to hear, and His arms are always open for embrace. And so, what God is saying in this verse, it's an invitation and a command. So He's telling you to cast all your anxiety on Him. Give all your worries to God and to not hold on to them. It's all because He cares for you. And God isn't distant. And it's easy at times to think that He is, because we just get so busy with the mundane of life and everything going on in our lives. It's easy to forget that God is right next to you sometimes. And so He isn't distant. He's personally invested in your life and everything that you've got going on, because He cares for you. And so this reflects God's love, and this is reminding us that He doesn't want us to live burdened by fear and stress. He wants us to give it all to Him, because He's already addressed it on the cross. And so the implications for mankind here are that God cares about our struggles. He's not watching from a distance. He wants to help. Humility is key. We have to trust Him. When we trust Him with our worries, it takes humility. You just have to let go, and just give it all to Him. And so you essentially pick faith over fear. And so for me, when I look at the anxiety in my life, a lot of it comes from me wanting, there's a saying that says, depression is living in the past and anxiety is living in the future. And my pastor's grandfather would say, tomorrow, I think something along the lines of, or something to the effect of, the past is the past. I forgot what he said about tomorrow, but if you just take care of today, that it inevitably takes care of tomorrow. And anxiety often stems from controlling what we can't, or trying to control what we can't. And so this tells us to surrender to God's plan. And so for my life, how I'm trying to apply this daily is to just surrender daily, recognize God's care for my life and his his interest in my life, because he's interested in what I have to do and what I have to deal with and what I have going on in my life. And he's paid it all on the cross, and he's with me 24/7. And sometimes when we feel that he's distant, all it just takes is, just looking over to him, and doing so, you're reminded that he's always been there and he's with you at all times. And so I've, written this verse down, memorized it. It's one of those verses that's, one line long, but it still doesn't take away from the power and its essence. So yeah, this was long-winded to me. Of course, this is me trying to speak to my notes and, the scripture itself. Again, this is a trial run, and I just wanted to give this a go and see what it would be like. And then, so this is a segment that I want to call Spurs and Scriptures, but I also want to introduce a third element, which is a nugget of knowledge, a piece of culture that I've been studying, and I'm constantly trying to expand my horizons and, broaden my perspective on the world and in a number of different areas, history, science, art, music, technology, religion, philosophy, just a whole, oh, bad girl. So obviously that was a bit long-winded and a little all over the place, because I was trying to speak straight out of the passage and kind of share my notes with you guys and kind of bridge the gap between the two as I'm speaking to the audience and thinking about how much time I want the length of the video, trying to tailor to the length of the video that I'm shooting for, which is about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm still not sure what the ideal length of the video would be, considering the three things I want to cover, because as of right now, like I said, it's just Spurs and Scripture, which is just whatever I'm doing on the ranch with roping, horsemanship, or, helping my cousin with whatever. And then, the Scripture being just kind of sharing my Bible study and whatever it is that I'm studying at the moment. And then the third thing would be sharing whatever piece of culture I'm currently studying. So that could be anything in the area of, for my notes, I typically have history, literature, philosophy, science, music, technology, art, and so on and so forth. And so as of right now, again, it's just Spurs and Scriptures, but I'm going to share the third part, which is, a current piece of culture in any of those given areas. And so today I wanted to talk about epistemology and give you guys a brief synopsis of it and what I've been learning about it. So epistemology is a branch of philosophy concerned with knowledge, belief, and justification. Essentially how you know what you know. So it explores a couple of different areas. It's like, what is knowledge? How do we get knowledge? And how do you draw the distinction between justified belief and opinion? So as far as the origins of epistemology, it has its roots in ancient Greece, where early philosophers debated the nature of truth and knowledge. And so you have pre-Socratic thinkers, so the 6th to the 5th century BCE. So you have Parmenides or Parmenides argued that reason, not the senses, leads to true knowledge. And then Heraclitus, in contrast, believed everything is in flux, making absolute knowledge difficult, the absolutes. And then you have Socrates, of course, which everybody knows, 470 to 399 BCE, was famous for his Socratic method, which is kind of like a form of questioning to expose somebody's knowledge or lack of knowledge. So yeah, and then you have Plato, which was 428 to 348 BCE, and so he proposed that true knowledge comes from rational insight, not the senses. So that introduced theory of forms, which suggests that arbitrary concepts like justice or beauty exist in a perfect realm beyond our physical world. And then you have Aristotle, of course, the other one that everybody knows, 384 to 322 BCE, rejected Plato's forms and argued that knowledge comes from empirical observation and reasoning. And so his work essentially laid the foundation for scientific inquiry, which is a basis that a lot of modern day scientists obviously resort to for any kind of research being conducted. And so then during the Middle Ages, you had like St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas. They integrated epistemology with theology. And so that debated the relationship between faith and reason, which is huge. And so in the 17th to 18th centuries, epistemology took a modern turn with rationalists versus empiricists. And so rationalists believe that knowledge comes from primarily from reason and innate ideas. And empiricists argued that knowledge is derived from sensory experience, which at times can be very anecdotal, if you ask me, but everybody's different to some extent. Then you had Immanuel Kant, who synthesized these views, suggesting that while knowledge starts with experience, the mind actively structures it using categories of understanding. I hadn't read that part yet. That was a piece that I took from some article. So then, as far as contributions to society, epistemology has shaped science, education, law, and technology in profound ways. So you have science and the scientific method. So then you have the debate of rationalism versus empiricism. So this led to the development of the scientific method, where observations are tested through logic and experimentation. And so then Karl Popper introduced falsifiability, which is huge, arguing that scientific theory should be testable and refutable, which I completely agree. And then you have education and critical thinking. Epistemology influences how we teach and learn. So it emphasizes reasoning, evidence, and skepticism. So the Socratic method is widely used in law schools, philosophy courses, and debate training. And then here we go, coming into artificial intelligence and knowledge systems, which is huge, again, being that the world of I seems to be taken over daily with progressive and exponential growth. AI development is deeply tied to epistemology, as programmers try to define what it means to quote unquote know something. And how machines can process and justify information. So the field of epistemic logic helps create AI that can reason about knowledge. And so when we go into the implications, so I kind of just wanted to split this up into a couple of different things. One, which is the origins of the concept that I'm sharing with you guys. Two, how it contributes to society. And three, what the implications are of said subject. And so implication number one, okay, can we ever know anything for certain? That's a question. So some epistemologists argue for skepticism, the idea that absolute certainty is impossible. Radical skeptics claim that we should suspend judgment on all beliefs, which can be, it's in the name, radical. I was going to say a bit extreme, but it's in the name. And then we have modern philosophers like David Hume and Bertrand Russell question whether we can truly prove an external reality. And I've got obviously my own take on this, being a Christian and given my worldview of a triune God who stepped into history. Anyway, so then implication number three, can AI or machines have knowledge? As artificial intelligence advances, can a machine be said to know, quote unquote, know something, or is it merely processing data? That's a question. So this question challenges traditional epistemology and the definition of conscious knowledge. So implication number four, the misinformation age, which is huge and prevalent today. With social media and AI generated content, epistemology is more relevant than ever. How do we verify facts? Detect bias, and distinguish justified belief from manipulation. And I think in the area of manipulation, if somebody is eloquent enough and well-reasoned enough and has whatever kind of literature that backs up the premise that they're trying to get across, I think a person can be pretty convincing in the right context with the right support, and I don't know, that's a whole separate discussion. But so then I have some fun facts. So that'll be like the fourth part of the said topic, or the topic that I'm sharing. So I think, therefore I am. So this famous phrase by René Descartes is a foundational statement in epistemology, arguing that thinking proves existence. And then you have Plato's allegory of the cave, one of the most famous epistemological metaphors. It describes people in a cave mistaking shadows for reality, illustrating how perception can be deceptive, which is a very interesting notion that I'd never heard about. Then you have the Gettier problem, I believe. I took some notes on this earlier today. So philosopher Edmund Gettier challenged the classic definition of knowledge as justified true belief, showing that it can sometimes fail under certain conditions. This problem still puzzles epistemologists today. No way. I guess it's fitting. So then you have stimulated reality and The Matrix. Movies like The Matrix and reliabilism and Google. Some modern epistemologists argue that reliable information sources like scientific consensus or verified databases can serve as a basis for knowledge, similar to how we trust Google or Wikipedia for facts. Just going out and almost blindly accepting something because it's coming from a quote-unquote verified and reliable source. So in summation, epistemology is the backbone of how we think, learn, and interact with the world. It has shaped science, education, law, and technology, and its questions remain at the heart of modern debates on AI, misinformation, and the nature of truth, which is everything. Again, I have my stance on the nature of truth, being that I have a biblical and Christian worldview. But yeah, so that was that. So again, this segment is unofficially Spurs and Scriptures, given the obvious. But I would like to add that third aspect to this segment. So it would be, like I said, again, coming out to the ranch, sharing whatever I have going on with roping, horsemanship, or doctoring cattle, or whatever it may be, and sharing whatever I have, whatever I'm currently studying with my Bible study. And then the third would be sharing a nugget of knowledge in the area of culture in any of those given areas. Again, art, philosophy, religion, music, technology, literature, art, so on and so forth. But yeah, I think that'll be it for this video. See, I kind of struggled. A lot of this is just trial and error and doing a lot of this on the fly. Apart from what I had in my notes from Bible study and that nugget of knowledge that I took a bunch of notes on last night as I went down a ton of rabbit holes on YouTube. And so a lot of it was done on the fly. I want to keep these around 10 to 15 minutes. Because I think 10 to 15 minutes is a sweet spot for like a vlog or a YouTube video. That's just my opinion, but that's what I try to keep my videos to as far as the length. So yeah, this is trial and error. Spurs and Scriptures has some really good alliteration to it. I don't know how I'd add culture to it, but I'll have to do some brainstorming for that. So yeah, anyway, I hope you liked the video. Like, subscribe, comment, share. I'm gonna give this thinker a proper bath before it gets too dark, and I'm gonna get on out. All right, later guys.